Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta. I have been a food blogger for 13 years, so I understand how isolating food blogging can be. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. You all know I'm kind of like a broken record when it comes to the topic of mindset. I talk about this all the time. I think mindset is the foundation for creating a solid, sustainable, successful food blogging business. So I absolutely loved that Lilian Boukheir brought this very topic to the table in this episode. Lilian is the food blogger over at Matbakh, and she talks about so many great things that support that concept that mindset equals success in a business like ours. We cover so many great things, including just getting into a rhythm, building habits that are going to serve you, focusing on your progress and not being perfect because that will never happen, focusing on your wins, even if they're really small, and how powerful that simple practice can be. So much other good stuff. You're going to love it. Please listen. Mindset is so important. This is episode number 551, sponsored by RankIQ. Hello there, food bloggers. Are you wanting to tap into additional revenue and improve your site experience for your users? If you're saying yes to all of this, then Chicory might be a really great fit for you. Chicory is a leading monetization platform for food bloggers, enabling you to integrate highly relevant, shoppable ads into your recipe content and earn revenue from top CPG brands. Chicory's hyper-contextual ads and shoppable technology will help you improve your site experience and engagement, allowing your readers to go from inspiration to checkout in just a few clicks. Enjoy easy installation and ongoing access to the Chicory team at zero cost to you. Chicory makes it easy to track your earnings, optimize your blog content using recipe insights, and connect with its team. Here is a testimonial from a happy Chicory user. Quote, "Cooking and baking is my passion. Chicory makes it simple and easy for me to share that passion with the Where is My Spoon audience, providing a seamless purchasing journey for my readers and an effective monetization model for my blog." End quote. That is from Adina Beck from Where is My Spoon. Head over to eatblogtalk.com/resources, scroll down to the Chicory logo, and click that button that says Learn More About Chicory. Or you can go to chicory.co/food bloggers to learn more and to sign up. Now back to the episode. The Matbakh is a Mediterranean food blog blending culture and good food. Lilian is a mom, engineer, psychology grad student, and food blogger. Her blog started as a passion project and has grown into a monetized food blog. Lilian, hello, welcome to the podcast. How is it going today?
It's going great. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you here. This is one of my favorite topics. I love talking about mindset and how important it is. Oh my gosh. Without it, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
Yes. First, though, do you have a fun fact to share with us?
I do. So I am still able to walk on my hands.
What?
So all those years of gymnastics, nothing stuck but the ability to walk on my hands, and I can still do it at the age of 38.
Oh my gosh. And do you do this often? Is this a party trick?
I do. Right now I'm pregnant, so I've
probably not now. Yeah.
Stayed off my hands, but yes, I pull it out here and again. So
that's so funny. I love it. I love this is why I do these, because we learn things that this would never come up in a conversation about mindset, right? So
that's right.
Now we're all going to imagine you walking on your hands. So great. Well, thank you for joining me here today. We are going to talk about mindset and how you really need to tap into this in order to find that success that you were looking for. Would you mind framing this conversation just by telling us a little bit about your blog?
Absolutely. So my first career, I'm going to call it my first career, was more conventional and more of a traditional career. I went to school and got an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, and I worked as an engineer for 10 years in the oil and gas industry. And once I had my first daughter, Amina, I stayed home with her, and I loved being at home, but it was really hard for me to envision going back to kind of like the more corporate dynamics. And so I was searching for, some kind of creative outlet, something that I enjoyed doing to kind of fill my time and maybe turn into something a little bit more. And so I like to cook off of other food blogs. I really enjoy my time in the kitchen. And so the idea kind of came about 4 or 5 years ago. Just, well, why don't I just make my own food blog? My background's kind of diverse, and my father's Lebanese, my mom's American. So we have a lot of different dishes running through our household growing up. And yeah, so it just kind of was one of those thoughts of like, well, why not? Let me just see where this goes.
Absolutely. I love that. And then, so that was like 4 to 5 years ago when you had the idea. At what point did it become like a business for you, I guess?
I guess it became more of a business once prior to monetization. This is just my personal opinion. I think you have to treat it like a business in order for it to become a business. So it wasn't something that I just kind of fell into. So I would say the first year, I don't think I really did anything. I was just kind of spinning around, not sure, where to begin. And then right about that year mark, I just set some goals of, okay, I'm going to publish. And I think at that time it was like 2 to 3 recipes a week. And I'm just going to get my hands dirty, and I'm just going to, learn as I go. And I think once I tied actions to, kind of like I had some goals, but once I tied actions to it, it started to come into fruition.
Yeah, the actions are huge, right? Like you can plan all day, but if you don't act on it, then really, like it's that spinning wheel syndrome that you kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
So like 1 year in, you just really decided like, okay, this is it. I'm going to start doing the things. Did you see right away that mindset played a role in finding success because there's so much going on? Or how did you land on that idea that you needed to focus on mindset?
Absolutely. I feel like mindset for me, at least, is like been a huge part of staying motivated and just organizing myself to taking action. Whenever you're kind of like a one-person shop, if things don't get done, they don't get done. It's not like you can kind of blame somebody else or rely on someone else. And so in a sense, I realized early on, it was like a very hard reflection of, where the blog went was directly correlated to my efforts and my ability to organize myself and stay motivated.
Yeah. Well, I love how you said that. How your success is directly correlated to your efforts and your actions. I think a lot of people don't see that correlation for a while, myself included. For many years, I didn't make the connection. And then when I did, I was like, oh, I'm kind of like, it's kind of falling on me. I've got to do this and figure it out. And that requires a lot of mindset work, usually.
Absolutely. And I think what we don't realize sometimes is like, it feels like a lot of effort to think about it, and it is. But when you think about things and don't actually like turn that into something actionable, it's like you're spinning your wheels and not going anywhere. Sometimes when I find myself just thinking about like, oh, I need to do this. It's like, okay, instead of thinking, what is the one thing I can do right now? So, it's in a lot of ways, it just feels almost the same amount of effort from thinking to actually doing it.
It's almost like the thought is your trigger. Like, okay, I'm having the thought and now I know I need to act, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, so you had that realization like, I need to act. I'm the boss. I need to treat this like a business. What else did you do to kind of get your mindset in check?
So I had a lot of things happen over the past 4 years that have, life gets lifey.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and so I found myself, being unable to work on the blog consistently, for chunks of time, just because I'm a mom. I was also pursuing a graduate degree. I moved countries. It was just,
Wow.
it was just a lot. And so where I saw my mindset really play a play a big role was me not getting discouraged whenever life got lifey, because, you know in a perfect world, right, when we build our blogs or our businesses, we would love it if it was linear and it was just on the up and up. But sometimes life gets in the way, whether that's an illness or, a loss or a divorce or a child. And so I think just being able to step back and look at your wins and be like, okay, yeah, it hasn't been a straight trajectory, but look at where I am now versus where I started, and there's growth here. It's more of a cha-cha, it's more of a dance and less of a like
Mm.
a sprint.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It is so true. But when we think of like an entrepreneurial journey, we think of a linear timeline, I think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's where people go initially, but that's not what it is. I mean, maybe for one person in the existence, it's been like that, but it is a dance. That's such a great way to put it. It's like it's so hard to put words to the journey that we experience.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I agree with everything you've just said. A lot of ways, it's if you expect that it will be linear, then you will see any sort of movement backwards as a failure. And
Mm,
that's the opposite of encouraging. It's like, oh man, it's not working. And, like with Google updates and just with, all the changes in this fast paced arena, you can easily, or Pinterest, like you can
yeah.
easily, like things are winning and then things aren't winning. And you're like, oh no. And so just being able to frame those instances in a way that isn't discouraging, I found to be very helpful for myself, so that I can just say, okay, like I'm just going to learn from this and I'm just going to, keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I find that being discouraged does pop up even for me, like doing this so many years. I still find discouragement, but I feel like focusing on my mindset and really digging into that aspect of me makes that discouragement go away faster. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't last as long, the shelf life is much shorter.
Totally.
And I think that's where the key is. Like you're probably going to be discouraged from time to time with all the stuff going on right now in our industry. You'd have to be a saint not to be ever discouraged. I feel like there's so much, but you can be discouraged less by doing what you said, like focusing on the wins. We all have wins to focus on. We can all
Absolutely.
look at some aspect of our business and say that we made progress in some area and probably many areas, I think, right?
Yes. Sometimes I don't know if this affects others like it does me. Facebook groups are awesome to like, kind of stay up to speed with things, but sometimes, you get in comparison mode. And so I found myself having to step back. Like if I see someone like, oh, well, I made it to a premium ad network in like less than a year, and those are great. Those are solid wins. And I don't have like the mindset that there's a scarcity mindset where it's like, there's only enough for so many. I think that, there's enough for all of us and for
Yeah.
us to all kind of build each other up and grow. But sometimes you get in that comparative mindset where you're like, okay, so what am I doing wrong? Why isn't it going fast enough? And I think when I catch myself doing that, I usually take a step back and I'm like, okay, yes, things could be better, but they could also be worse. Look at the wins that I've had up until now. Like I didn't make it in a year, but I made, the premium ad network. I think it took me 2 years to make it to an ad network. And okay, look at some of the things that I've learned along the way. So I learned how to write good content, and I take better photos than when I first started out.
Yeah, there are different ways to measure it. So it's not just like, where's your traffic, but it can be just what you said, like measure your progress in photography or video or the way you've approached your users or communicate with them. It can be so many different ways to measure
Yes.
how you're improving. Yeah. I love all of this. I think this is such an important topic that tends to get shoved under the rug because of all of the things that are like in our face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this happened with SEO. You need to figure that out. And what about Pinterest? And we're like, stop pushing mindset down my throat because I need to figure out SEO, but it's actually the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to figure out your mindset, and then everything else falls into place so much easier because we're not as discouraged as often and all of that, right?
Yes. Our thoughts really control a lot of our behaviors. And so, if we find that we're not, hitting goals or moving in a direction we want to, looking at that, I think, is helpful. Just to kind of, evaluate.
Yeah, absolutely. Always evaluating. So do you have some specific tips for us to just kind of hone in on this a little bit better so that we have a really solid foundation for being a food blogger?
Yeah, I would say one of my biggest tips for myself, and I'm not sure if this resonates with others, but I am a person of habit. Like the book Atomic Habits really suited me. And I find that whenever I create like a habit or a system, it's easier for me. It's just like second nature. So what was really helpful for me is just like getting into a rhythm of consistent publishing. Like whenever I found my blog to grow consistently, when it's tied to my actions, it's based on consistent output. And so what that might look like is, okay, I'm going to consistently publish, one new post a week or two, whatever that may look like. And I'm going to keep doing that, and let's say that if I can't reach that, then let's see what I can do. So maybe that's just updating posts. So for me, it's been designating days in which I work on my blog and then tying kind of like little work scopes to what I would expect for myself to accomplish.
Yeah. I was going to say, since you mentioned Atomic Habits, I have to say this. So he always says like, what can you do on your worst day or your worst week? And like, just do that, like plan for that worst case scenario. But then if you can do more, awesome, right?
Yeah.
But getting into the rhythm, like you said, of just doing that thing, whatever you establish consistently is so huge.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not robots, like it would be, for us to not take, I have a blogger friend, we were just talking and, they decided to take several weeks off. I have taken sometimes months at a time off from my blog, just for personal reasons and family, and being able to be okay with that, like we've got lives, we've got other things going on, and just saying, okay, I'm going to do what I can during this period, but whenever I do need to take that chunk of time off, I'm going to take it off. And I'm not going to, turn it into where like, oh, I'm never going to come back to it. It's just like, here's this period of time and we're going to step away for a little bit, take a little vacation, some family time.
Yeah. It's so important to do that and to give ourselves and others permission to take that time off once in a while. We cannot realistically carry on with a blog at the pace we go when we're at our full pace all the time. We will burn out. We will not make it. We will not survive in this world. So I love that you're giving people permission to just step away for a time. I think that's huge.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we go into blogging, or at least I did, because I wanted flexibility. I wanted a life that I could, I could turn it up when I want to, turn it down when I need to, like summers are really busy. And so not being able to allow myself to do that is kind of going against why I wanted to work on my, start a food blog in the first place.
Right. Yeah. We get into a zone where we're like, wait a second, I started this for the freedom and flexibility, and I'm just at my computer all the time. And it's it's counterproductive. Like, we don't need to be doing that. So I find myself in that position occasionally too. It's really hard because we love our businesses. A lot of us are like in love with what we've produced and what we've created.
Yep.
Our blogs are our babies.
I was about to say that.
I know, like we can get really invested in them. So it's easy for me to lose time and lose my sense of like, oh, I need to be doing this with my family or whatever. Like I still have that struggle. It's a real struggle, but we do need to remind ourselves that the freedom to be with our families or fill in the blank is why most of us did this in the first place.
Yep.
How do you deal with like, I don't know, for me, I have these seasons of overwhelm where it's just like everything piles up at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily Q4 for me, but I do have like 2 times of year that I can think of that I just feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much crashing down, so much that I'm trying to juggle. How do you deal with those seasons?
That's a great question. I do feel overwhelmed often, possibly because it's like it's an open-ended, it's like whatever you can produce. Like there's an unlimited number of recipes. There's an unlimited number of recipes to try out and perfect and whatnot. But how I handle those moments is, and I feel like I'm just a broken record. I go back and I try to celebrate my wins and just get in a place of gratitude. I was reflecting on this the other day. So my blog it's still a little bit smaller, but it's been able to provide a really stable, at least since it's been monetized, a nice little part-time passive, income stream. So its growth is dependent on how much I'm able to put into it. But whenever I'm busy with life and stuff, it's still generating income. And so I was thinking the other day, even though I feel like it's not growing as fast as I want, or I'm not putting the amount of time into it like I need to, or I'm overwhelmed with all the other things going on, I try to celebrate those parts of it where it's like, okay, I really love the flow when I create this content. Like I love what I do. And I really like that when I don't work on it, I still have a really nice income stream. I really like that I can, grow it in the direction that I want to go in. It really authentically represents who I am and the foods that I make at home. So I try to focus on those parts to balance the overwhelm or feeling like, I'm behind, or it's not growing fast enough, or my traffic's stalling, or I try to have that holistic perspective.
I love that. Hello, food bloggers. Let's take a quick break from the episode to chat RankIQ. Are you using RankIQ? Are you on the fence about it? I'd love to tell you about the shining features of the tool so you feel confident diving into it. Number 1, the main and obvious reason I love and use the tool is because it has helped me increase my traffic substantially over the past few years. If I hadn't found RankIQ and started using it, I am not sure where my traffic would be right now, but I'm guessing it probably wouldn't be good. Number 2, I also love how easy it is to navigate. Unlike other keyword research tools, RankIQ is straightforward, it's simple, and it's just plain easy to figure out. No confusing stats or numbers. It has just the things you need. Number 3, the rankings audit section is a dream. In a single click, you can connect to your Google Search Console account and get a real-time report. I like to scroll down to the pages experiencing traffic contraction sections to see if there are posts I can pay more attention to in order to get a quick traffic boost. Number 4, the optimizer in RankIQ is my favorite optimizer of all the optimizers. It is easy, effective, and you don't have to use a keyword from the tool in order to use it. Find any keyword in any research tool and run it through the RankIQ optimizer for highly optimized content that will rank. Ready to dig in yourself? Head to rankiq.com to get started today. Now back to the episode. The good thing about food blogs is that once you are monetized on an ad network, it is kind of passive, so you can stop yourself, like you said, Lilian, and just give yourself permission to set it down for a period because you don't need to burn yourself out. You can set it down, let it percolate, let it earn some revenue, and hop back in when you're feeling ready. So that's the answer. I just gave myself the answer. Thank you. I do struggle with that though. It's like after so many years of doing this, I wonder, why am I here again? I'm at this season where I'm so just, I don't know, overwhelmed, and I should know how to handle this by now. And I'm getting better, but it's a constant struggle for me.
Oh, it's a struggle for me too.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear. I'm not glad that it's a struggle, but I'm glad to hear I'm not alone in that. I think it's probably a common theme for a lot of food bloggers.
Yeah.
I would imagine. All right. What else do we have for mindset? I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, what about perfectionist tendencies? I know that plagues a lot of us.
Oh, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Yes, I do have to check in with myself and look at, kind of zoom in into the progress and not just like in this idealistic perfectionist mindset of everything needing to be perfect. I remember when I first started blogging, doing a recipe, and I think that's why I sat on the blog for a whole year, is because it wasn't perfect. It was like I wanted the recipe to be so perfect and the pictures to be perfect. And I was so afraid to just publish anything. And so, and how I like I mentioned, it was like a year of just like, feeling kind of like as if, I didn't belong. I had all these feelings of like, oh, I'm an imposter and I don't know what I'm doing and people will know. And what if they don't like my food? It was just like all these things. And I guess what I ended up, kind of to overcome that was I'm just going to do it. Just going to, okay, there's going to be somebody out there that doesn't like onions. Like I cook a lot with onions and
Yeah.
don't like onions, and it's okay that they don't like this dish because they don't like onions or they don't like garlic.
Who doesn't like onions and garlic? Oh my goodness. Just kidding, but kind of not.
Yeah, like every Lebanese dish has like very potent garlic, onions.
I love it. They're the best.
Yeah. I just had to, kind of overcome that. And so when I find myself getting stuck, I kind of like when I'm having those similar thoughts that loop.
Yeah.
I try to break free from that by looking at, okay, let's pull up. Like if I feel as though my photography is still not where I want it to be, I pull up old photos. I'm like, all right, let's be objective about this. This is where I started. And you can see a huge improvement once I learned how to use a DSLR. And then, a gradual incremental improvements as time went on, and there's progress there. And so I'm like, okay, I'm celebrating this progress and I'm just going to keep at it and try to hone that skill.
You've said this a few times, and I think it's so important that really a lot of the overwhelm and frustration that we can encounter as entrepreneurs can be solved with minute bits of gratitude and celebrating wins. I mean, it sounds so simplistic, doesn't it? But it is so true. Try it. It sounds like you're an expert at it, Lilian, which I love because, like I said earlier about just this whole topic being shoved under the rug, this can get shoved under the rug too because it seems like that couldn't possibly work. But it works so well if you can just stop yourself from getting into that loop of crazy and just like experimenting with it. Just like you just said, looking at a photo or whatever, like something so simple that you've improved upon and focusing on that and being grateful can totally take you out of any overwhelm that you're feeling.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that it's like the message of this whole thing is just stop. just look around you and see what you've done. You've built a business. You've done so many amazing things. You've got, who cares if your traffic is quote low? It's more than what you had when you started. Like there's so many ways that you can look at what you've created and be so proud.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. We just have to have a little bit of love for ourselves sometimes. We're so hard on ourselves, right? Do you see that too?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can be sometimes our hardest critic.
Yeah, it is. I would love to hear your thoughts on how to deal with that because that is a common theme in our area.
Yeah, I try not to attach too much to, I mean, it's like what you said earlier that totally resonated with me was the blog in a lot of ways is another baby. It's like, something you
Hmm.
create and you identify with and you nurture it, but trying not to attach too much to it because we're more than, I mean, I don't want to say this kind of sounds bad, but it's really how I feel. We're more than just our blog. And our blog, in a lot of ways, reflect us, but it isn't the only reflection of us, meaning like we're just so much more multifaceted. We have lives outside of our blog. We existed before our blog and we will exist after, and so just not attaching too much, just appreciating it and loving it for what it is and fostering it. But at the end of the day, we have relationships outside of our blog and lives outside of our blog, and just trying to celebrate that too.
How do you plan with, just keeping mindset in mind and like staying in a healthy space there to find success? How do you plan like content and anything without getting frustrated or like caught up in all the things? Do you have tips for that?
Yeah, so I am a recovering to-do lister. So and sometimes it's helpful. Like I'll get a white sheet and I just take everything that's on my mind and put it on the sheet just to get it out of my mind.
Hmm.
And then what I'll do is I just pick, it's really one thing. Like, so I create my own journals. I do it in Canva. I use Canva for my Pinterest pins. And so I make my own like daily reflection journal. And part of that is gratitude. So every day I go through a gratitude piece and I try to touch on my blog, like something I'm thankful regarding my blog. Like if I got a comment on a recipe, that like somebody, I recently had one where it was a gentleman, his wife she was Moroccan and she had passed away and she used to make really good couscous. And he was making couscous for a Islamic holiday Eid. And he used my recipe and he said that it tasted just like her couscous. And,
Oh,
when you just sometimes stopping to just appreciate something as simple as a comment like that. And so back to my little journal thing, I have a section that says like, I let go. And sometimes it's related to my blog. Like I let go of my perfectionist mindset or whatever I've attached, my expectations that I've attached to. And then I have a part of my blog and I just put one thing. Like I don't put like 10 things to do in that day. I just put one thing. It's like, so today I want to work on Pinterest pins. And so I just put, that's what I'm going to work on today. It's just Pinterest pins. And it might be as big as I'm going to create a new recipe. It could be that, but all I had time to do today was Pinterest pins.
yeah. And that's doable, right? Just putting those chunks that are doable and feasible down. And that doesn't make you feel as crazed about planning your stuff.
Yeah. And it feels good to cross it off
Oh,
and
it
do
does.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing better than crossing things off the to-do list, right? I love your brain dump thing too. I do that once in a while where I just like there's so much swimming in my head that I'll just like almost like vomit all over my notebook, just put everything down that's in my head that I need to do for the next 3 months or whatever it is. And that just somehow is cathartic. It feels so good to do that.
Yeah.
Even if you can't get it all done realistically, it's still good to get it out. I
Yep.
think that's like that should be a food blog therapy, something like that really works. I don't hear people talk about that enough, but I'm glad that you do it too.
Yes.
Yes. What else do we need to know with mindset? What else has worked for you or anything that we should keep in our heads as we navigate the rest of this year?
I feel like being a food blogger, like I remember when I put my website up and like the only visitor was like my mom and my sister. Like, and I thought that was a win. I was like, oh, they can access a website that I put up,
Yes.
And, so where I was going with that was, just kind of keeping things in perspective. And just when you find yourself it's a feeling, it's like this stuck feeling or an overwhelmed feeling, just trying to detach from it, zoom out a little bit and, like think a little bit about, is this really, if it's keeping you up at night, is this worthy of keeping me up at night? Yeah, I recognize these feelings, but I'm also going to just kind of put them in their little bubble over here and, not attach too much to it.
And that can be hard, but with practice, I think that can get easier, right?
Yeah, I think so.
What's helped me with that is meditation. I have been just really diligent and consistent with meditating recently, making it a priority for the first time in my life. I feel like I'm so much more prone to just letting things go like that. Whereas before, I would, in the middle of the night, hold on to things that were ridiculous. Like, what am I actually going to do about that project now? Nothing, but yet I stay up for hours thinking about it. But now I feel like I can just go into this like almost Zen state and talk myself into a better place. I'm also sleeping better in general after meditating. Do you experiment with meditation at all?
I love that you brought that up. I used to have a meditation practice before I slept, and it was very, very helpful. I need to get back into it.
Oh, it's so good.
So I've done actually two. I don't know. Do you have Headspace, or you've heard of Headspace?
I've heard of Headspace. Yeah. I've heard people love Headspace.
I've used them. And then I've also done walking meditations.
Yes.
But yes, I have seen a correlation in my ability to perceive the thoughts running through my head as separate from myself whenever I'm in a meditation practice.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, because when you're not, or when you're caught up in your thoughts, you can't observe what's going on. You're there experiencing it. You're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, whatever. But when I am in a meditation practice, I can do exactly what you just said and kind of observe and go, oh, wait, that's something that I don't need to think about. Or like I can pull myself out of it so much more easily.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much power there. But it's hard for me. For the longest time, it was like, I don't have time to sit down even for 5 minutes. And even when I do, I think through the whole meditation. There were all these excuses that I would come up with. But once you figure it out, and it's not that hard to figure out, it's magic. It can do so much for your mindset, I think.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think even just stepping and this is more just in life in general, but I used to feel guilty, like mom guilt, when with like taking time for myself, like going to exercise, because there's so many things. It's like, oh, what I got to do the laundry and I got to make da-da-da. And I feel like I shifted in many areas of my life once I started to realize, no, I need to be in a good frame of mind. I need to be okay while I'm moving through my day. And so, when I care for myself, whether that be sleeping well or taking time to meditate or exercise or journal or whatever that might look like to you, because it's different for everybody, I'm able to show up in a lot different way than had I not done that. And I find working on my blog, it's the same. So, if I'm just like only focused on my blog and not taking care of the other aspects, and I'm staying up really late to get things done, or, it's not as enjoyable. It's not something I'm like looking forward. It's becoming more like stressful. And so I think the way in which you show up to do the work on your business or on our businesses is also really important to think about. So.
Yes, that is so true. I can relate to everything you just said as well. Yeah, this is a really important topic. Hopefully, we've inspired some people to just, focus on mindset a little bit, whether it's creating those habits or working on that perfectionistic mindset, or just having a little bit more love for yourself when you're judging or being harsh with you. Or what we just talked about, like maybe getting into a meditation practice. Is there anything else, Lilian, that you want to mention before we start saying goodbye?
No, I just think if you're listening to this, give yourself a nice big hug.
Oh, yes.
It's not easy, and it's a lot of fun, but you've probably made a lot of progress in whatever you're working on, and yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's such a good way to end. And thank you so much for bringing this topic to the table. I just love it when other people feel as energized by it as I do, because I feel like I'm a broken record sometimes, constantly telling people, you've got to work on your mindset. So thank you, Lilian, for also being an advocate for this very important topic. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with?
I do. So this quote is by Shunryu Suzuki.
Okay.
And it is, if your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. So I like this quote because it just reminds me that when I'm in a place of like, a beginner's mindset and just like wanting to absorb information, I'm able to look at things a little bit different than whenever I approach from like more of an expert, like, oh, I've already got that down. And just staying in that and being able to continue to learn and have that growth mindset.
Oh, love that. That is the absolute perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. We will put together a show notes page for you, Lilian. If you want to go peek at those, head to eatblogtalk.com / okay, I'm going to let you say what comes after the / because you say it better and you can spell it for people if you don't mind too.
Absolutely. It's the Matbakh, and it's spelled TheMatbakh, and it's an Arabic word that means kitchen. And so it's a combination of English and Arabic, the kitchen.
Love it. So people can find you there, correct? If they go to your website?
Yep. www.thematbakh.com.
And social media as well? Any other place you want to direct people?
Nope. I have Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
All right. Well, thank you. And everyone go check out Lilian's blog and her channels. And thank you again so much, Lilian, for being here. And thank you for listening, Food Bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. If you are craving accountability, focus, and connection at a low monthly cost, join the Eat Blog Talk accountability group at eatblogtalk.com / focus. I will see you next time.